We didn't get, any of your backstory, and you started measured golf, indoor place, which is doing awesome, and we want to talk about some of that, the
Okay.
business side of that as well. But give us a brief history of like leading up to when you decided to kind of go on your own.
Yeah. So I was a PGA member who graduated from a PGM school, and I didn't know if the face was open or closed at the top of the swing as a PGA member. So that wasn't too good. So I really kind of struggled for a bit. I was like a club pro for a bit. I was a GM. I like was good at that stuff, but I love teaching golf, and I got out of the club side of the business because, as you know, it's kind of a not the best place to be.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, yeah, we've all been there.
Yep.
So I got out of that and then got into coaching just like part time because I missed golf and I loved it. And I started coaching and had some success. Just coaching, just people skills, just being nice, showing up on time. That'll fill your lesson book pretty quick, honestly. But I wasn't, I was trying really hard. I was very like I was present with my people, and I'm trying to help them. And I'm not mad at them. I'm mad at me for not like knowing the right thing to say to help them. So about a year into that journey, a gentleman by the name of Dave Kendall, who owned the Kendall Academy of Golf in Ann Arbor, Michigan, calls
Hmm.
me up, and he's like, "Hey, like let's talk. I'd love to meet you." And I had never seen an academy. I was from Richmond, Kentucky. Like we didn't have that stuff down there. So like seeing the academy, I was hooked. I'm in. Dave was nice enough to grant me a spot to coach there. So like I walk in, and my first lesson, I'll never forget it. I was like whispering, and I didn't want to say anything very loud because like I knew like I'm around these guys and they're smart and they know everything, and like I don't know anything, and I know that as a coach. But like you fake it till you make it kind of thing
Yeah.
almost. But I met a guy there. His name was Scott Hayes, and he was a legitimate master certified golfing machine instructor. He was the real deal. And he gave me the Cornhusk Yellow book. It's right here.
Oh yeah.
Gave me the Cornhusk Yellow book. And for a guy and I'm talking about myself, for me wanting answers, the golfing machine is a book of that, So,
Encyclopedia. Yeah,
right.
of options.
Yeah, right. So I fell in love and I got into it and I spent a couple years underneath Scott learning. But in that time I bought a TrackMan and like I'm loading power accumulator number 2 till the cows come home, and everybody's got a path that's like 4 or 5 to the right, and everybody's hitting like draws that are too much. And I'm like, something's got to give. And my TrackMan rep at the time actually, he's like, have you ever heard of Forceplates? And that was really the first time I'd heard about it. And I bought a set of the 1Ds from Smart to Move right when they came out.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I've just been obsessed with trying to connect the dots, and I don't know, I don't have a background in that. I failed Math 101 4 times. I'm not making that up. I literally failed Math 101 4 times. I took 8 years to get an undergrad degree from a directionally named college. So, I mean, it's like, dude, I don't know how I wound up here, but I'm curious. And in 2019, I was really fortunate. I had some force plates, I had a TrackMan, and it was time to go. Like I was paying too much in rent. It was a bad business deal for me personally, and I wanted to keep investing, and I couldn't pay rent and invest in myself. And in 2019, Mr. Adams, the one that kind of started me down looking at the body, that whole road, I went and the bioswing dynamics. Mike said, invest in yourself, ask better questions,
Mm.
and I've been living by that ever since. But to answer the original question, in 2019, I went to see Mr. Adams down at the Medalist, and I remember getting there and thinking that Mr. Adams would have a building somewhere and be teaching, and it'd be great, and it would be all this cool stuff. And it was just him, and Keelan was his assistant at the time,
Hmm.
but it was just him and Keelan standing on the back of the range in the sun. And that really stuck with me because at the time, Mr. Adams was number 2 on the Golf Digest list behind Butch, and was Bioswing Dynamics was as big as it had ever been or was going to be.
Right.
And like it was just like, and he's just standing in the sun. And I'm thinking to myself from a business side of things, like if Mr. Adams can't have a facility built with his name on it and da 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 by now at this level, I'm never going to get that. So the idea of waiting for somebody to kind of give me a facility to work out of, I just kind of threw that out the window and I said, I'm going to put a roof over my head. And then that way I don't have to deal with this political stuff for the rest of my career.
All right. So how do you, one, I got two questions. One,
Okay.
when did you decide to use the handle the Forceplate guy? And then two, how did you come up with the money to start your facility now? Because I know you've mentioned in other interviews you've made a few mistakes, maybe had a bad business deal. If you don't mind, like, I mean, this is helpful for people that are looking, because that's I mean, that's a big part of the future of our golf instruction, especially for up north, is you can't have a range all the time, and definitely year round. You've got to go indoors. So if you could share whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm pretty open about it all. And this is a cautionary tale. So, um, I tell people this, and I use this example just so it's not about me. But, the worst thing that can happen to the best plumber is somebody tells them that they're the best plumber and they should start working for themselves. Right? Like, that's the worst thing that can happen to the best plumber,
Okay.
because he's the best plumber. He's not the best businessman. He's the best plumber. But if he goes into business for himself, he no longer gets the joy of just being the best plumber every day. Now he has to answer the phones and schedule the appointments and deal with the customer
I'm with
complaints,
you. Yeah.
right? So it's
Yep.
like there's so much more that goes into running a facility and than just showing up to one and teaching every day.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people underrate, the amount of work that goes into running a small business. But the other part to it is it costs money. And I was crazy passionate, and I wanted to do my own thing. I'm kind of that way. I like to kind of, figure it out on the fly a little bit. And I talked somebody into giving me some money, and they gave me said money on a certain term sheet, and that term sheet changed 3 months into the deal.
Ooh.
And it went
Gotcha.
from 3 years at 5%, which was a pretty friendly deal between two friendly people, to 1 year at 20%.
Oof. Okay. Yeah.
So most people don't survive that,
Yeah.
right? And I shouldn't have either. So I've had business partners that haven't worked out. I've had partners here at the facility that haven't worked out. I've had loan sharking going on.
I was gonna say, like, did has anybody gotten hurt in your industry? Right?
Nobody's
So-
shown up
Somebody
with
paid
like,
you a
yeah.
visit.
We haven't got there yet, but it's been an adventure, man. But it's
Yeah.
so good now that it's fun to talk about, and it's fun to kind of
Yeah.
look
You're on
back
the other
on
side
it
of it, right? I mean, that's
a little bit.
the
Yeah,
stuff that you go through is in the learning moments, as we always
I haven't
talk
said
about.
this anywhere. I'm going to say it to you, okay?
Yeah,
I haven't
please.
said this anywhere, okay? And I want to say this because I want to be honest with people. Not this last one that we just had, but the holiday season before this past one, I was working third shift at FedEx. And I'm not saying that to get sympathy or I don't want any.
No.
But like I had somebody on my payroll that I couldn't afford, and I wasn't going to lay off somebody during the holidays, so I just went to work at FedEx.
Wow. I mean, that shows the kind of character you have, though, too.
But it's also like,
awesome.
dude, we're so privileged, Jason.
I know we are. I know.
Every day we get to go to the golf course is such an incredible privilege. And like, I get it. Sometimes it's not your day, and sometimes you hit them a couple crooked too many times. I get it. But it's still so much better than slinging boxes at FedEx during the holiday season. I can promise you that. Like, it's way better. But
man.
I'm too old for that stuff now, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but yeah, I mean, but you're passionate, I'm passionate. There's so many people that are going to listen to this that are passionate. And the thing that I tell people all the time is if you're reasonable, you'll never go into business for yourself. If you actually do the business plan and you look at the financials and you look at all the risk, like there's no reason to ever jump. But I like to think that as crazy as I've been and as many years as I've taken off my life through this project so far, that at least there is a glimmer of hope that people see with Measured Golf and can see that, like, hey, if you bet on yourself and you work really hard,
Yeah.
maybe you can make it work, because it hasn't been easy, but it has been great. And I am proud to say, I don't have any allegiances. I don't have any advisor agreements with anybody. I don't get any deals. I pay for everything. I can say what I want to say. I can do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a DOI over you that like can cancel you at any point in time. Like
That's
I'm
why I
good.
love talking to you. Like we have, our discussions at the show and at these workshops, and like this guy gives 0 Fs, right? Not that in a good way. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like you're free
Yeah.
to speak your mind and free to, give your opinion.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
Why
it's
not
hard.
me?
It's hard to
I
put a
just
price
lean
on
into
that.
that.
Yeah,
Why not
absolutely.
me? I just
Yeah,
lean into that.
absolutely.
I've struggled. I've had my phase to where, I felt like an imposter, and I had my imposter syndrome phase to this whole thing. And
Dude, I'm still in that phase.
yeah, it's every
Oh,
morning I drive to work thinking I'm the worst coach in America. Like every
I,
morning, I'm the worst.
I mean, yeah, it's
But
it's a
that's
humbling deal. Like you have your best lesson, and then all of a sudden, somebody brings you to your knees, and you're like, "What the
yeah.
heck just happened?"
But I think honestly, I don't even think it's the outcome of the lesson. I just
Mm.
think that we're so passionate about learning and getting better and trying to understand more. I think I think that's where it comes from. Is it's that drive to constantly learn. And Kevin Kirk, if you're listening to this and you don't know Kevin Kirk, please look him up.
He's the man.
He is the
Love
man.
KK is
But
my boy.
like I'm going to steal his, and the reason I said Kevin, I'm not just name dropping. I'm going to
Warrior
use his
spirit.
word, Kaizen,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Kaizen,
Warrior spirit,
like
baby.
always trying to learn, always trying to like figure something out. And I love talking to Kevin about that stuff because he really is the stone that has no moss. Like he's just always kind of moving through the ether. And I love coaches like that, man. Pete
Yeah,
Cowan,
yeah.
what he's figured out, and kind of like the thing that's amazing about Pete is that Pete figured this stuff out like 40 years ago before Dr. Thomas Myers even published any of it. So
Hmm.
like Pete's been talking about spirals for 40 years. And the thing that I think is so impressive about Pete is Pete has never tried to reinvent what he knows to be true. Like Pete has been doing this for so long with so
Yeah.
many highlight, like his history and his
Oh yeah,
credentials,
absolutely.
but like he's never went back to the well and tried to be like, okay, I'm tired of doing this. I'm gonna go and reinvent the wheel so I'm entertained again. He's just shows up, all black, does his job, moves on. And but when you talk to him, he's so curious and he's still looking into things, and it's just amazing. Like I wish that I'm half as curious as Pete Cowan is at his age.
Yeah, I mean, you have success for reasons, and a lot of times, just because we couldn't measure things back in the day doesn't mean that they weren't right. And that's the thing. I think the cool thing, because everybody, because I obviously have a lot of technology as you do,
Yeah.
you can get labeled as a technical coach, which couldn't be farther from the truth. A lot of times for me, I feel like I have a lot of old school stuff in me, but the more we use the tech, the more we basically don't have to use the tech. It's like I can
Correct.
sit there and watch somebody move now because I've seen so many traces and so many force and pressure movements that I can just about guess pretty darn educationally that this is what I'm going to see. You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
still
Like,
equating everything
yeah,
back to ball flight though, just like you are.
100%.
I mean, and
Yeah,
that at the end of the day,
yeah,
that's what we do.
yeah.
So I always tell people this because this is the part that drives me crazy, is people call me and they're like, "Hey, I got some force plates and like they don't work," and I'm like, "Okay, well, what's wrong with them?" And they're like, "Well, when I look at this peak, that's happening here, and it's supposed to happen." I'm like, "Okay, well, it's ill-timed. That doesn't mean that the plates aren't working, right? Like people are really having a tough time kind of understanding
Hmm.
that we can't always just look at a force plate and like we need it to be perfect because there's a lot of people who are really great players, and I think if we could and go back and look, which we cannot, but I think if we could go back and look at some of the great players of all time, I bet they don't use the ground very well. I bet they don't. And I know that there's a lot of tour players that don't use the ground very well. But what they do is very consistent and good enough to get the job done for we
Yeah,
don't have to be perfect.
yeah.
But if
Skill,
you
the
have a vicious
skill.
snap hook or you have
Yeah,
a vicious block and you're not moving well, then I want to look and see if we can't change this through getting the movement a little bit better to fix the ball flight versus
yeah.
just telling you to tweak a position, which is never going to be a lasting change, as you know.
Yeah, it's again going back to the discussion of hands versus body. You got to have the skill base. These guys are so good with their hands because they've grown up. I mean, I'm the same way. Like
Yeah.
if I couldn't pass the 90-90 test and you tell somebody that you can't shuttle the club, then I couldn't play golf because I guarantee I can't pass it and I can shallow the shit out of
Yeah,
it because
yeah.
I've got skill, just that skill, the athletic
There's so
skill.
many
So a lot of
different
times,
ways that you can do it with the
yeah,
anatomy. And like that's I
right,
get so frustrated because so many people get angry on force plates because they're like, "Oh, it's terrible." And honestly, it's not great, right? And let's just
mm,
be honest. Like maybe it isn't great. But at the same time, you can look at that and then kind of look at their golf swing and go, "Okay, they're actually kind of managing this pretty well." And then the nice thing is that you kind of clean up the motion stuff a little bit, which is,
yeah,
in my opinion, easier than the other way. And then you see that, like, oh, well, look at that. They compensate and they don't have to compensate as much. So it actually gets easier for them to do, which is kind of at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is just make things easier. I try to
absolutely,
curate, not create.
yeah. So kind of piggybacking back on, we kind of got sidetracked when we were talking about setup, which we talked, where we like to see the pressure, how they're moving into their trail side. And I know you do a lot of online certifications and coaching. So I think this would be a good sort of segue to say, all right, what are you teaching other coaches of sort of what you like to see, and then probably more importantly, like what doesn't work as far as how you can go any direction you want to go with the question, but we know
Yeah, I mean,
it's point of contact, it's timing, it's magnitude of force. Like talk me through how you would teach another coach what you like to see during the golf swing.
so interestingly enough, I just did a awesome education kind of event over at Peak Athletics in Ashburn, Virginia, which is just outside of DC. We had like 25 amazing coaches show up. It was awesome, and it was funny because I'm gonna tell you this, but this is like what I talked about with them, and
Perfect. That's what
I
I want.
and I was telling them we're going to talk about all the other stuff because I have like a not a laundry list, but I have 6 or 7 things that we need to understand pretty well when it comes to like looking at force plate stuff.
Yeah.
But point number one is the key and most important one. And I told this group, I said 90% of the people that you put on force plates will not get past this. You don't need to look at the other 5 or 6 things. This is the thing they're going to fail, and this is the starting point. And the beautiful thing is it goes back to our earlier conversation when we were talking about pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first thing that I look at, no matter what system I'm using, is I have to see a minimum of 75. I'm going to say 75, but a minimum of 75% of the pressure into that trail side by P2. That has to happen. It's a non-negotiable. If you're doing less than that, you're going to be underloaded and you're going to be late as hell and you're never going to get your pressure left.
Gotcha.
That's the number one core staple thing for me that I coach. And most people that you will see that do it with good timing, meaning that they get their maximum pressure to happen by P2, they won't have enough. So they'll be under the 75% threshold. Or if they get enough, meaning over the 75% threshold, it'll be happening like at the top of their swing, which is obviously way, way later than P2.
Gotcha.
I promise you, if you measure, like if you teach 8 lessons tomorrow or whatever the case is, I guarantee you, assuming that they're not like, they're just club level golfers, like I'm not talking like players, but like club level golfers,
Yeah.
I bet if you measured 8 of them, I bet you 6 of them don't do that.
Yeah, definitely timing. And then you see a lot of them that get there late, but then there's too much, right? They got 95 of pressure on their right side, rolling
Because
to
they're
the
just
outside of the
swaying
right.
all over the right side. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
There's way
yeah.
too much laterals,
Right,
not enough verticals, and
right.
an AP in the. That's
But
exactly what Tattersall preaches is getting that speed and pressure from start to P2. So
Tattersall's the one that
yeah,
Tattersall really helped me kind of understand that. Like,
me too.
it's
Yeah,
it's it's really funny how, like I said, I live on an island. You like we all do to a certain degree. Like
I'm
people
almost
think
on the
that.
island.
Yeah,
Just
I
off.
am. Yeah, so I'm on the island.
Actually.
Yeah. So the fun thing is I start kind of thinking through looking at all this stuff that I'm starting to believe this is something that's going on, or I come up with my theories, right, and then you
Mhm.
come up with yours, and then you go and you listen to somebody like John Tattersall present, and you're like, holy smokes, he already got there. There it is. Okay, cool. Like, and we
Yeah.
we just end up kind of being able to use one another to learn and validate, and it's just so cool, man, because John really helped. Like, I was going down that road for sure, but then for him to kind of have all the evidence that he has that supports all, it's just so apparent that the end of the backswing, if you want to think of it, and the way I kind of think of it, the end of the backswing is when the club stops moving away from the target. Like, that's the end of the backswing. And dude, that is P2. That is the end of the backswing. If you want to play better golf, if you're still trying to crank on that thing after P2, you're in deep, deep trouble.
So what are the other four? We're teaching the class here. So you've got 75% at P2. We're getting loaded. We're pushing up and back, whatever you want to, how you describe it. Like, continue. What do we want to see throughout the transition and the forward stroke?
Yeah. So my big thing is we got to get loaded. If we don't get loaded, we can't get unloaded. So that's the big thing for me. And then once we have satisfied getting the pressure loaded underneath the cuboid by P2 with a minimum of 75%, the next big thing is you can kind of think of it a couple different ways. I just think of it as torque, because most people think of AP as the only kind of torque there is in the golf swing. They don't know about the frontal plane torque.
Yeah, that's
so I'm
huge.
just talking pure AP,
Yeah.
okay? So the total negative AP torque, okay? So if you think about turning your body away from the target in the backswing, you have to stop turning away from the target by P2 as well. So when you look at that graph, Jason, as it's going to be, you're turning away, so it's going to be underneath the graph, underneath the line, right? So when it comes up and crosses the zero threshold, that needs to be happening at P2 or slightly before.
Okay.
Total AP.
Gotcha.
And by the way, if you have people that you're working with that pass both of those, they probably should practice more, because they could probably play some pretty good golf.
So continue. Keep going. Come on.
Okay? So I'm not even going to try to do the next couple parts on this podcast, because then we get into moment arms and braking forces.
Why not?
And I actually show people the equation for how we look at those things independently and can measure them. And then I get into, it's a hodgepodge, man. It's definitely got some Mike Adams leanings in it. It's got some Homer Kelly. It's got some everybody who's been in the industry. But I get into what I call individualized dynamic matchups. So a lot of people talking about screening and assessing, but a lot of what I try to help people understand is more basic stuff. Like, hey, when you look at somebody, do they have a short torso? Do they have a long torso? Are their arms long? Are their arms short? Mike did a lot of great testing with wingspan relative to height. He's kind of published a lot of work on that, and there's definitely some relationships that you can find there that are kind of interesting. But the big thing that I'm always trying to get people to understand is we're gathering all this information, but at the end of the day, when we're looking at this tree and we've got all these data points everywhere, the lowest fruit is always the fruit worth squeezing. The lowest fruit is always the fruit worth squeezing. And so many times it goes back to our earlier conversation. It goes back to posture. It goes back to grip. It goes back to alignment. 90% of people you put on force plates, Jason, they don't make enough torque. They don't make enough torque. They don't make enough torque. Well, like we said, if they look like Kim K and they got their butt all stuck out and they're locked out in their lower lumbar and they can't create any thoracic twist, no joke, they don't have any twist, right? So do you fix that through trying to make them twist through a locked out back, or do you fix that through helping them get into better posture? So now that there's an actual opportunity for the thoracic mobility to occur.
So which of the forces do you see most average golfers need more of in the downswing?
In the downswing, what I tend to see...
That's not a broad question, but I mean, I'm just
it's a broad question.
Trying to get you to share some shit here. Come on.
I just don't want to mislead anything, because so many of these things get
No, just
taken
keep
and
it
ran
basic.
with.
I mean,
I would say with my people, so my people that here's my favorite lesson. Hey, Mike, I can't take a divot. That's a pretty standard guy, right?
How do we
can't take
improve
a
low
divot.
point? How do we improve impact, right?
So one of the number one things that I would say that most golfers have a tough time with is A, getting the club back to low point, and 2, taking a divot, right? You kind of have to do both those
the proper
things.
way.
So most people who don't take a divot tell me that they're over the top.
Okay.
Think about that for a minute. If you were over the top, you'd be blading it and be hitting it thin. But these people were like hitting it like 6 feet behind the ball. So they're
It
not over the
depends. I mean, you
top,
could do
right?
either way. You could go either
You
way.
could. But in
Yeah.
this case, most of these people, they're not over the top. They're like way shallow and
So
way
you're saying
behind
like
the
to
ball.
swinging too far to the right, to like a shallow,
Yeah.
low
Which
point back situation.
which if you're on Instagram, that's the trick, right? You got to swing about 12 up on it with your driver, and you got to swing about 8 to the right, and that's how you hit those sling hooks like Rory does. But long story short, like
Yeah.
I see like that's an easy thing that I see all the time. And most people are trying to use the ground more to get the club out of the ground. I got to use more vertical. That's why I'm sticking it in the ground. I got to use more vertical. That's why I'm sticking it in the ground.
Okay.
Well, to borrow from James Lights, they're just pushing so hard with their lead side that they're just cartwheeling themselves. And that's why their low
Gotcha.
points happening way behind the ball.
Okay.
So a lot of people that come to me actually use the ground a lot. And the more late they are, typically the more they're using it. So the biggest thing that I try to do with a lot of people is just help them with the timing and understanding how to maybe quiet it down a little bit and get them to a point where they can deliver the club again. And then we can ramp the speed back up because they know how to do that. They just don't know how to slow it down enough to get things to happen in sequence.
So they
And
need
most,
more lateral, is what you're describing? Would you say? Is that what we're
yeah,
talking about?
I would say generally, like if you see the big push out of the left, you
Yeah.
generally, when you look at the horizontals, you'll see that the lead side is way higher in laterals than the trail side. Right? So
Yeah.
generally they're not getting any push out of that trail side at all, which tends to be because they didn't load in the first place, is what I see.
100%. I'm with you there.
Right.
Yeah, and then verticals in the downswing, I think.
But everybody
typically
thinks
are
verticals
late.
is like the solution for fat, and it's not. And generally,
No.
I think verticals actually leads to more fat than it doesn't.
Well, we could debate that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think one of the things that you're kind of describing again, it's people have to watch the videos. When you're doing the cartwheels, we're getting a lot of right bend. So it kind of goes back to some of the calc stuff that I really like when we're trying to move low point. And I'm not ever trying to get people in front of the golf ball, but if we get the center of mass and the center of pressure closer together, right, upper center, lower center closer together in transition as the club's swinging the appropriate direction, then that helps the low point as
Considerably.
well. Yeah. But one of the questions this doesn't, it has to do with ground reaction, but also how the body can affect the club. And I've asked this to several coaches on here. Let's just say we've got, what's that?
I said, ooh, I'm excited.
Oh, yeah. So, well, and this is, I mean, again, I'm trying to help myself because I'm always kind of curious
Yeah.
like how people are improving impact. Let's just say we've got a student, it doesn't even matter their handicap. Let's say mid-level handicap or even some low handicap players. You'll see it. We're happy with the takeaway. We're happy with how they're pushing. We're happy with their backswing. We've got a club face that's whatever matches their grip type. Everybody's got their preference of, what they like to see or what this player can do. And they're shallowing the club or swinging it on, I would say,
On a plane.
the appropriate swing plane or swing shape. I don't use the word plane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I mean, let's just say, who doesn't like a shaft at P6 that's on top of their right forearm?
Yeah. It's
Does
fine.
anybody not? I don't know. That's pretty good, right? So let's just say we got it there, and they're still hitting behind the ball. Okay, so their impact looks like this, and I'm describing a very cupped lead wrist, and the throw, we call it flip. John Tattleshaw would hate for me to have this discussion because he thinks everybody flips it. So, but whatever. This guy, I mean, looks awesome. Still, bottoming out behind the golf ball. All right. How are you going to help that player?
So I do see that. I know I kind of
See
have
it all the
like
time.
yeah, I had like 14 guys pop in my head when you said that.
Perfect.
So I do see that. And what I tend to see in that situation, and basically what you're saying is like it's really, really good until it isn't, and it isn't
Yeah.
right at the ball. Right.
No, it's usually from P6 to 7.
Yeah,
where
just dumps.
it's a dump. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
So I call that player a trapper. I call them a trapper. I believe them to be a trapper. And I think that without getting too far into the weeds, I would
What do
say
you
that
mean a
that's
trapper? Like, what do you? What is it? What do you?
somebody that's closing the face via extension of the trail wrist.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That's my definition of a trapper.
Gotcha.
So I can swing my or move my right arm across my body, right? And then I can go through extension in the trail arm and
Yeah.
deliver the face that a lot of people do, right?
Yeah. Let's say the trail arm, just for the listener, the podcast listener, the trail arm is straightening a little too soon. The right wrist is going from extension to flexion super early. Their hands are like just inside their right thigh at impact.
Yep.
Okay. Looks
Okay.
amazing. Might be able to like throw a little, high draw out there, but not super solid. Right? How
Not
we gonna help
super
that player?
solid.
Yeah.
And that player tends to have issues with creating appropriate spin, launch, and has a hard time getting it high enough in the air because of the way they're delivering the
Either
club.
when they're hitting it on the bottom, but I mean, when they do hit it good, it goes too high because they're adding.
Yeah, they can spin it, yeah. So,
Yeah,
long
yeah.
story short,
Yeah.
that guy, what tends to be happening is he tends to have what I've seen and what we've measured with the Sensor Edge Forceplate grip that we have, because like I said, I have everything. But what we tend to see is that guy or girl is really pushing extremely hard with their left thumb against the grip and transition.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Tell me more.
So,
I'm in.
interestingly enough,
I want to know what's happening with that trail hand because that's what
So
I've
you've
seen.
got-
Yeah.
so if you want my trail, there's my trail.
Yeah.
So I've
No,
got
either
these
one, but that's good.
I've got these three fingers, my last three fingers. Those are your squeezers.
Yep.
These two are your pinchers. Okay? The thing is when you pinch your pinchers, if you do that for me, go ahead, just pinch them really tight. You can feel your trap engage.
Okay.
Now, if you squeeze your squeezers, no more trap.
Love it. Love it.
So that's the way that your arm kind of works. These go up here through here. These go down through the bicep.
Perfect. All right, let me stop you there because this is something. Again, this is one of those Pete Cowan moments like that I've just discovered because just I'm a nerd and haven't had a way to measure it. But what I've seen for these particular players that tend to have a little more throw, from the top of the swing, is one, either the grip is too much in the palm of the right hand, or it moves. I've seen it even move into the palm as they start to change direction. You
Yep.
with me? So
Yep.
that's probably what. So I'm like, because everybody, I do a lot of right hand like trail hand drills where I have them take it off, hell drill, Spider-Man, and so forth. But when they put it back on, I'm like, it's not that we want to change the pressure in your right hand. I just need you to have your fingers holding the club as opposed to your palm. Perfect. All right. So I wasn't too far off base there.
No.
All right,
So
cool.
long story
Continue. This is
short,
great. Yeah.
so when you get to the top of your swing, okay, and you're going to move the club back across your body, the problem is that if you're pushing with that thumb, you're not actually pushing against the club the way you think you are. You're actually pushing against your own wrist
Guys, so
because
you're
the club
losing
is inanimate.
lag, for lack of a better term.
So you're really just
Angles,
kind of
yeah.
locking out your whole right wrist.
Mm-hmm.
So now I got to throw
sense.
darts with a locked wrist. It's going to be kind of hard to do much. More importantly, here's the real problem, is that if I have all that squeezed and locked, my right shoulder is never going to want to move. I can't get it. Oops, sorry, hit my mic. Okay, I can't get it to move across my body because it's so tight here. That's never going to let go until it has to, and that's why it does that, because it's literally running out of arm.
Gotcha.
So you're so locked here that you can't get the neck to let go so that I can use the lat to extend through the ball.
So have you found that like the position of that right thumb on the handle is huge, right? Because I hate it when it gets like to the right of.
It's weird though.
Center.
I have some people I have to have them take it off like all the way to
Yeah.
get them to quit squeezing it. But then there's other people I show it to them and I'm like, hey, stop squeezing that thumb. They're like, okay, and they never do it again. So
I'm just wondering
I
the
don't.
position of that right thumb, like, because I like to see it just to the left, which
Yeah.
doesn't engage the snuff box in the right wrist a little
Right.
bit. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of obsessed with, like, I look at that right hand and the right arm, and I'm like, why are they doing that, right? Again, it's not. We used to think, oh, because the face is open and they're trying to close it. No, not. I see plenty of shut face players do the same thing. Makes
Yeah.
no sense, right?
Yeah, and the other thing that drives me crazy is like we talk about the hand all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but we forget like there's a shoulder and an elbow connected to the hand too.
100%. Yeah.
And
Right.
it's like
The
I
right
see all these
trail
people
arm
with their
mechanics.
forearm to the sky and they're like just ripping it inside and they're super flat and around and it's like, well, no kidding. That's the way it's going to go if you position it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the trail brachioradialis more on top, now the club wants to go steeper and the shoulder wants to stay more internal, which I tend to like,
Mm-hmm.
versus getting this thing externally rotated and around me. Now the only thing I can do from here is throw the thing.
Gotcha. Reaction.
That's it.
Perfect. All
Yeah.
right. So again, how do you
We got
guys-
into something there. There you go. See?
I mean, it was good. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, so give me so any drills to help that, or how are you going to train that player? Like you mentioned, just having them like what take off.
I do
couple of
six
fingers?
finger. I do six
Yeah.
finger swings all the time. So we
Okay.
go 3 and
So
3.
middle three. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I always just kind of have people count their digits. So like your finger has 3 pieces to it. So it's 1, 2, 3. So I just tell them that the club sits in 2 and 1 and 3 squeeze together, and then we hold it. I didn't know it's going to be hard for the people listening to this, but when we hold it,
Yeah. Yeah. It's all right.
when we hold it, what we want to do is we want to have the golf club in front of us in square, but we want to have our elbows super wide like F1 racing, get your elbows out. But then as we keep the pressure in our fingers, we actually want to feel like our arms squeeze more together,
Sure.
and it feels more like they're coming forward, up and over, versus trying to get underneath and support the golf club. That's generally, I do a lot of 6-finger drills and make them just kind of swing the club through. They can't even believe that they can hold the golf club that way,
And
let
you've
alone
seen-
swing it all
and-
through the
and-
swing.
And you've seen them get more forward shaft lean because of that.
Yeah, they just have to because they start hitting the ground. They're like, okay, well that doesn't work. So then they just naturally start moving it more forward because they're so
Naturally,
used to
doesn't
like,
happen in my bay a lot of times.
yeah,
Like you better have some some ammo because that goes back to that skill, right? It's like one concept they don't understand what the impact should kind of look like and feel like.
I think that's huge though. It's
Yeah.
like I posted like my videographer. It's one of those weird things. My videographer suggests that we do things all the time, and I'm like, that's terrible, and I'm not doing that.
Mhm.
And then he ends up talking me into doing it, and then it's a big hit. So like he
You never know what's
filmed.
people are
You
gonna
never
like.
know.
Yeah.
So we filmed some lessons or whatever, and he wanted to post them. So I was like, sure, post them. I don't care. So one of the lessons we just posted, it's like an hour long or whatever, but the guy doesn't hit a golf ball for like maybe 45 minutes. Okay. And then like, I feel like a lot of people have asked me about that and if that's normal, and it's very normal for me. And the reason it is because the minute that we try to hit a golf ball, we're a slave to that ball. And I don't know a single golfer who can let go of the consequences of what that golf ball does. I don't know one. I can't. So, long story short, like you just said, if we have concepts that don't align, or we have things that don't match, or you're doing a couple of things in your golf swing that you're timing up well together, but otherwise shouldn't really work too good,
Yeah.
if you start shaking that stuff, like you said, it gets very, very messy. So I try to kind of make sure that we understand, like, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're kind of trying to like mess around with right now. And if you do it correctly, it doesn't guarantee that the ball is going to fly better. Just this thing is going to happen. And I like to have that thing predetermined, and then I want to see that thing change. And
Yeah,
like
it's
that's
like
one thing that I
you got to agree on what you and the student want to accomplish. Like we want to improve low point. Doesn't
Okay.
necessarily mean the face is going to be perfect, but
Right.
we're basically improving contact, and then you kind of work around that. So I love that. That's
right, but it's the
beautiful.
explicit
Yeah.
part, right? So
Absolutely.
we need to fix this, and then I need to provide. Okay, I gave you the context, and I gave you the explicit part of this. Now I need you to go and own that thing through some implicit learning and doing some drills, and
Yeah.
I think some creative practice goes a long way for a lot of golfers, like making them uncomfortable, not just giving them the flat lies all the time, that the yardage is that
Yeah.
they know by heart, like just letting people get uncomfortable and learn how to maneuver in that space and still stay creative in that space is huge.
Yeah, love it. What are give me a couple of drills you like for ground forces for particular problems, and
I get people
we'll wrap you
stomping
up.
all the
Appreciate
time.
your time. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
get people stomping, man. I've posted them a
I've
bunch
seen that video you
on
did.
social media.
Yeah,
Like I knees high, high and in, and like, dude, you'd be amazed. Like even people that you think are so uncoordinated couldn't do it, dude. They'll haul off and hit one hard, and maybe for the first time ever. But I love doing a lot of the marching stuff because so many people are so late getting to that left side or
yeah.
even being aware of that left side and how it works in the golf swing. It's probably my go-to. It's a great warm-up. I hit like when I go out and play golf, I'll actually hit maybe the first 4 or 5 balls kind of marching, and just kind of because I'm not a very good mover myself,
Mm.
and I definitely like to get kind of late with everything. So kind of waking myself up and getting going early is useful for me. But I also do a lot of stop swings. And when I say stop swings, mine's maybe a little bit different than what most are thinking.
Talk to
Instead
me.
of
Yeah,
stopping at the
breaking.
top,
Hmm.
I like to stop at low point. So I like to teach that the golf swing has one up and one down, right? So we're taking the club and we're going to the top, and we're
Hmm.
taking the club and we're going down. And that's what we're doing. And we're doing that really quick. And I start with like an alignment stick just because it doesn't have much
Yeah,
weight and people can move it quick without injury. And then we add a little weight to it and do some speed training that way with people. But just like getting people to learn like where the break goes is huge because
yeah.
so many people, dude, will literally try to stop and then reaccelerate back up around.
Hmm.
And it's like, no, 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 just one down. And just getting people to learn how to let their arms do what they know how to do in the downswing is magic. Because so many
Stopping
people
the
are,
hands. Yeah, right there, right thigh, where we know that's the
yeah,
fastest part
yeah, right.
of
And
the hand speed. Yeah,
you got to condition people. We all are coming from this from very, that's where I think it gets missed a lot. We're all coming at this from our own place. It was very unorganized probably in the beginning. We were just kind of hitting balls and feeling things, and nobody was
yeah.
really verifying anything. So it's like you got to realize that there's maybe some stuff going on that you're not aware of. But when you become aware of things, you got to be careful because a little awareness goes a long way. So that's
Yeah.
why I kind of like, hey, this is what we're trying to do today. This is what we're now aware of. Let's just stay aware of this thing instead of all the things.
Yeah.
Because once we start becoming aware of everything, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Feeling real is a very long bridge, as I like to say. So it's like,
Very.
so we got to try to shorten it a little bit and then stay, yeah, getting your players to stay focused on one or two things.
But that's where,
Yeah.
I think it's never been better, right? You have, I don't know if you use the Rotex device that Dr. Joe Lacaze invented
No,
and made.
it's interesting though. I would enjoy it. I know Tattersall uses them.
Dude, they're incredible. Like there's
Hmm.
so many, and there's a million different things, but the Rotex in particular, I love because it gives me the opportunity, and I'll share some more with you about this if you want, but
Absolutely.
it
Yeah,
gives you the
please.
opportunity to give a player a feel that they've never had before in their life. Like you can't believe how many people have never loaded their trail side, and the first time they do it, they're like, "Whoa!" I mean, like it wakes them up. Like they've never felt that before. So I think that the thing that makes our job better now than it's ever been isn't necessarily the tech, but I think it's the amount of training aids and devices and the fact that we can actually gather some accurate stats now on people and understand like how they're actually performing versus how they think they're performing because we know those two
100%.
things are never the same.
Yep.
I need help with my driver. No, you need to make a 12 footer every now and then. Like,
Yep.
I mean, it's just little stuff like that. And I think, you know, most people are still stuck in the Stone Ages of us trying to figure out how to make fire. And like, look, for the average person playing golf, we know how to make that fire. And it's more about trying to quiet the noise and try to create more.
Love it. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, man,
Really
this was
good
fun.
stuff. Absolutely. All
I
right.
mean, this
So
is for a daytime. This is pretty good for you. You're pretty
I,
alert. You're
I
pretty awake.
phew, way too awake. Like I told you before, I just did a 42-degree cold plunge and had 2 cups of coffee. I'm over
How long do you
activated.
stay in?
2.5 minutes right now, but I'm literally like 3 weeks into this thing. I've done it every day for this 15 days, and I'm
What
just
do you feel like?
slowly.
Do you feel
I,
anything?
oh my gosh! Like while you're in it,
Yeah.
it's numb. You're numb after 30 seconds. You can't feel
You
like
just
yeah.
go completely numb?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, it sometimes it starts to hurt a little bit, but I mean, it's just completely numb.
Mentally, what's it like?
Oh, it's so
Is it white
enlightening.
knuckle?
It's just so crazy. It's just kind of like, as Joe Rogan said, that first 30, you can get past the first 30 seconds, which is like the get the f out stage, then you're good. So I've battled through that. I need more pain in my life apparently, but when you get out, like you just feel amazing. Like you're just so awake, like laser focused. My body feels better.
Yeah.
I've had some issues with my knee, which I haven't been able to run. So I've just been doing some other stuff in the gym. But
I
yeah,
feel like I got
it's
suckered, but it's
interesting.
working. I've been doing the grounding bed sheet thing. Have you heard about this?
Mm-mm.
It's like this thing you wrap around your bed and you plug it into the outlet, but it doesn't plug into the like electric part. It plugs into the grounding part, and it's called grounding. It's been around forever. But
Okay.
anyway, I was interested in it, and then they like had one of those like Instagram ad things for one of them that was like, I don't know, $50 or whatever. So I got one. Dude, I've been sleeping like a champion.
Oh
Like a
wow.
champion. Like
Send that to me.
I
Yeah.
will. It's
Yeah.
it's
But this
nuts,
helps.
man.
Yeah, the ice bath it definitely helps with your sleep. It's like
Inflammation too, right?
huge inflammation.
So
So
that's what this grounding thing does as
yeah,
well. They're like if you
interesting.
sleep on this thing, it like really lowers the inflammation in your body. So
Okay.
I'll send you the link. But it
Yeah,
seems
yeah,
to be working. I
absolutely.
feel better.
There you go. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I'm just trying to stay upright, dude. I'm just trying to get in better shape and not
Dude, I
hurt.
don't care if it's a placebo or not. Like I
Right.
just want to feel a little better.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep the biscuit wheels on the gravy train. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
I
all
love it.
that's all I'm trying to do, man.
I love it, dude. All right, so you got to answer the question.
Okay.
Always at the end. So
Okay.
if we had to get a message to billions of people, we got to get a message to the world and put it on a gigantic billboard. What would your billboard say and why?
It would say be more curious. Be
I
more
like it.
curious.
I like it.
You know, I it was actually funny. This kind of ties in well. I get coffee at the same place every morning. Okay, so, like I'm a creature of habit, like everybody else. So I know the people that work there. And this morning, the one person that always waits on me was in a terrible mood, just terrible mood, and was like really rude to me, and it pissed me off. So instead of freaking out, which I almost did, to be honest, like we'll keep it honest, like why
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
taking it out on me? I like sat back while she was making my coffee, and I'm like, why is she acting like that? And you know what? I just asked her. I'm like, hey, are you all right? She's like, oh, I'm having a really bad morning. This happened, that happened, da 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 da. And I was like, well, I'm really sorry. Like that sucks, and I hope you have a better day. And like just that little bit right
Yeah.
there, man. Like that helps. But like we're very judgy. We all want to
Yeah.
jump to our conclusions. We all want to like assume we know every. Just be curious. Why are people the way they are? Like you'll figure out that there's a reason for it. They're not crazy. They're not
Ask better
stupid.
questions, right? I
Ask
mean,
better questions,
before
Mr.
you
Adams.
judge.
Ask better questions.
Yeah, before
Like
you judge. I love that,
that's the
man.
key, man. Just be
I love
curious.
it. Well, this has been great, man. To like tell
Yeah.
everybody how they can follow you. You got great content. You got certifications on the stuff that you're doing. So give them all the info.
Yeah, you can find us on social media. You can find me, the Forceplate guy. I didn't answer your question, by the way. A client called me that one day,
There you
and
go. I was
I
gonna say, how
hated
did it
it.
come? Yeah,
Yep, I hated it.
same way as
And
Golf Guru. That was the guy called me that one of my colleagues, and it
yep,
just ended up sticking. Still
yep.
not comfortable with it, but
I'm not actually good with the Forceplate guy either, but that's what it is. So, but there's the Forceplate guy where you can find me. I have a website, social media, but then we also have Measured Golf, which is the facility and the YouTube and the future app, which is coming down the road. So we have a lot of things that are fun, but you can search Measured Golf, find the podcast, find the YouTube, find all the cool stuff. But yeah, thank you so much. Like I appreciate you letting us get a plug in, and you know we've been a big supporter and fan of yours for a long time. So hopefully some people tune in and listen to this thing.
absolutely, man. You're great. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man.
Always great to catch up with you, my friend.
I appreciate it, and thanks so much for doing this, man. You're helping us all be smarter, and you're helping us all learn how to ask better questions. So I applaud you for that.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate you.